Bring up my virtual machine here. Okie doke. Well, we're here today to talk about the tool known as BI Express. BI Express is part of our Workbench suite. With the Workbench suite includes BI Express, DBA Express, and Doc Express. And it has a suite of tools. Now you can see over here on the left where under the product I'm focusing on BI Express. So what you see here is the suite of tools that are part of BI. And you can see there's so many of them, we're not going to have time to cover them all today, but we will be over the course of some future webinars. And there's several that we want to focus on today. The first of these is our best practices. If you are, say, a manager, or you're just wanting to make sure your packages follow the best rules, or even beyond packages, your databases, your analysis services, projects, even your reports are following what industry best practices are, it'd be good to have an automated tool that will go through these and determine, hey, analyze everything, look for a set of rules to tell you what's good, what could be improved on, maybe what's just informational that you might want to think about for the future. Now, for our demo today, I'm going to do two things. First, I'm going to do a best practices analysis against a database. And for today's project, I have set up a database. And in that database, I have just a list of podcasts. I picked one that had a high number of shows, in this case 684 of them, and it had some kind of funny titles, so I thought this would make a good demo. And you can see in my worst practices schema, I'm doing things like putting spaces, like show space name, show space number, airspace date. So I've got some spaces in here, and we all know that's not a good thing. I've also got a couple of stored procedures. In one of these stored procedures, I'm using a select star, which absolutely should not be done. And in another one, I'm using the no lock hint. If you're not familiar with it, no lock tends to, as a side effect, can cause you to read dirty data if you're not careful with it. So two things that I put in here. Again, normally I know enough not to do these, but we wanted some good errors to show up. Additionally, I'm not using any primary keys or foreign keys, so those are some things that it would want to look for. To launch the Best Practices Analyzer, I'm going to come back here to the Workbench, and we'll launch Best Practices. And one of the things I can do is review what best practices are out here. So if I click on Create Best Practices, you can see down here on the left, I have a list of all the things it's going to look for broken out by category. So you can see all the ones for SQL Server begin with the word SQL Server, and they're going to look for things like avoid select star. And you can see the severity is set to error, make select star, can harm performance, so it's got a message about why, and here's what the recommendation is you do to fix it. We also have the filters that are based on either stored procedures, or other types of objects, and the path evaluator is how we evaluate the certain object. So in this case, the @DDL script represents the script that is stored inside the database, and the select/s*/* is a regular expression. And you don't have to worry about too much about completely understanding that. If you look out to the right, there's this Path Builder button, and the Path Builder button will help you assemble this path evaluation. So it's fairly automated. And yes, that does mean you can actually create your own rules in here. All you have to do is come up here on the left, you click the plus button, and you can add your own rules. For example, down here, as we look, you can see all these naming conventions for SSIS, and then under it, I added a rule, well, I guess it's up here, I added a rule that said, don't use select star in lookups. So it's going to look for that, and there's our path evaluator that I built. So this is just one that I added yesterday just to kind of demo this. But for right now, what I want to do is actually now run these rules against my database. So we'll hit the back button here. And I'm going to come over here and say Analyze Best Practices. Over here on the left, you can see all of the things that I can analyze. And there's a lot of them. I can actually analyze an Excel spreadsheet if I want to. I can get to Hadoop data via Hive, some Power Center information. I can evaluate a SQL server for best practices, analysis services, integration services, and reporting services. Now, out of the box, we include the rules, as you saw, for the SQL Server products, but you can create your own rules around these other objects. What I want to do is evaluate SQL Server, and you can see we have SQL Server versions 2005 to 2014. You're only seeing here SSIS for 2012 because that's all I have currently installed on this computer. If you had other versions of SSIS, such as 2005, 2008, or 2014, they would show up as additional tiles. We break those out because, as you know, with SQL Server 2012, they introduced a radical overhaul to the way SSIS stores its packages. Now they have shifted to a catalog model. So for ultimate flexibility, we break the SSIS down into smaller pieces. So I'm going to come up over here to the SQL Server one. And the first thing it's going to say is, hey, what server do you want to look at? Now, I'm going to look at localhost, but you could look at any server that you're allowed to get to on your network. I can also use integrated security or SQL Server security. By default, it's going to look at everything, but what I actually want to do in this case is limit this to just the particular database that I have in mind. So I'm going to come down here and you'll see this Edit Filter button. I'll click on Edit Filter. On the first screen it says is what types of objects do you want me to look at? Well, I'm just going to go ahead and take the default, but you can see I can limit this to maybe just databases or just constraints, that kind of thing. I'm going to click Next. And then it says, well, what objects do you want to look at? And it starts at the root level of localhost, but I'm going to expand that by clicking this little arrow button. And it's going to go out and it's going to break this down into all the different objects on here. So what I want to do is I'm going to uncheck this. I'm going to scroll down to the databases and only check on the one database I'm looking for. So I'm going to uncheck him, and you can actually resize this to make it a little bigger and easier to work with. I'll expand my list of databases.